CKNW News Talk 980, BC's news leader.
Sue Paish, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
UBC, local girl.
Absolutely.
What was your first job?
My first job, believe it or not, was as a cook and a wrangler on a hunting and guiding territory in the Spatsizi Plateau in northern British Columbia.
A cook and a wrangler.
You bet.
How old were you then?
17, I guess. 16 and 17. My father owned guiding and outfitting territory in northern BC, and in the summers I went up and worked for him.
And what did you learn from it?
A lot. How to be independent, how to be resilient, how to roll with the punches, don't take anything too seriously. And we are exceptionally lucky to live in a province like British Columbia that has the kind of territory that we still have today. It was a phenomenal growing up experience and not your usual summer job.
No, for sure. Then you went to UBC.
Yes.
And became a lawyer.
Yes.
So how did you go from lawyer to CEO of a pharmacy company?
Well, believe it or not, lawyers and pharmacists have a lot in common. Tend to be organically pretty intelligent, well-educated, inherently very independent, community-minded, and lawyers in big law firms like Fasken Martineau, where I was the managing partner, and in Pharmasave, tend to want the benefits of a large umbrella organization while still retaining their rights to do what they want to do in an independent way. So I had been managing partner at Fasken's for 6 years, and that was a term appointment. Mm-hmm. So at the end of that, there was a lot of discussion about what next, and a lot of discussion about going back to practice. I'm not very good about going back to things, so I started to think about what I might do. I loved the business leadership part of the managing partner role, and thought I might try my hand about that in a real business. And Pharmasave at that point was seeking a CEO. I was actually a director on that board, and had the discussion with Pharmasave, not really thinking I was appropriate because I'm not a pharmacist. I don't know retailing. I don't know merchandising. I don't know franchising, was my view. But the board came back and said, but you do things and you know things that we need: strategic planning, vision, the engagement approach that I take to leadership. And so that's how the marriage came about.
I hadn't realized it until I picked up the Globe this morning, but this is International Women's Day, and their headline is "Women Still Struggling to Find a Seat in the Corporate Boardroom." And yet my first two interviews in this series are with BC women who are CEOs.
You chose well.
We did.
Yeah.
Is it different being a woman and a CEO than a man as a CEO? Well,
that's a difficult question to answer because I can only answer it from the perspective of being a woman. What I can say is that it is a very small group of women who are CEOs across Canada, not just in British Columbia. And that probably has its genesis in a couple of things. One, social culture is really hard to change. And people progress in their careers, I think, based a lot on relationships that they build, but also on the demands that are placed on them throughout their lives. And it still is a fact that as women become mothers and leaders of the household, there are enormous pressures on women, and it is very hard to find that pathway. And you need incredible support through your family. You need incredible support through your employment, and you need support from a community, whether it's through a mentor or whether it's through some kind of peer group, in order to find the way.
Did you have a mentor?
I had many mentors. I have been very, very lucky. Most of my mentors have actually been men, except I would say my three daughters, as they've grown older, have become mentors, and as they were younger...
That's a bit of a role reversal, isn't it?
Well, it is, but through the eyes of a child. My kids have always had an uncanny ability, especially when they were teenagers, to ensure that I kept my priorities straight. You sort of blow by the, you're not actually going to wear that to work, are you, comments. But listen to the kinds of things that they say and the kinds of things that they respond to as a way of keeping on the straight and narrow, because when you are a CEO and when you're involved in a lot of organizations and activities connected with that, it is sometimes difficult to keep one's priorities in order, and children have a way of doing that. At least they did for me.
Yeah, interesting. I would say the same. Were there women that you admired when you were growing up? People, prominent people?
Well, sure. There were a lot of women that I admired. Carol Taylor was one. Had a lot of admiration for Carol, who with a degree of grace and determination, managed to march her way into various situations at a time where very few other women did. It might sound cliche, but had a lot of admiration for my mom, who taught school for 36 years, raised 4 kids, got her 2 degrees. Never once did we have a nanny or a cleaning lady, although the time we did have a cleaning lady, my mother spent most of her time cleaning the house before the cleaning lady came.
My wife does that. We got to clean up. The cleaning lady's coming tomorrow.
Exactly. So, my mom actually instilled in all of us a sense of work ethic that I think has served us very well as children. And I've tried to pass that on to my kids. So I'd say my mom was probably the top of the list, but people like Carol. Another person who I've admired all my career is Wendy MacDonald, the epitome of grace, of dignity, and determination in the face of unbelievable challenge. And Wendy's my neighbor, so we see each other a fair bit. And
I saw her a couple of weeks ago on the Sunshine Coast because she's up there too.
Yeah, she has.
And I read her book last year, and I would recommend it to anybody. When you talk about challenges, pretty amazing woman.
Wendy is astonishing, and she never turns down the opportunity to have a quiet chat to see how you're doing. She just reaches out. It's just an amazing woman. So if I was modeling my career, it would be, I'd love to be Wendy MacDonald when I grow up.
We'll come back and talk more with Sue Paish, CEO of Pharmasave Drugs. You're with Bill Good on the Chorus Radio Network.